Welcome to another episode of Coaching Football with Brian Clee.
Episode 12 is going to be a small adjustment to the game plan. We're going to only focus on how we take the concepts and principles of the tight front and use them to limit the offense's ability to have an inside run game. Ended up going through and putting together some film. Was going to put all the clips of us playing our different fronts together into one film, and our guys have had so much effort, energy, and enthusiasm when executing our calls that I've got about 30 clips coming up of us playing the principles and concepts of the tight front. And one thing that I think us as coaches sometimes get caught up on is terminology of, well, that's not really the tight front because you got your outside linebackers up tight on the line of scrimmage. And in the end, what's the tight front do? It takes two defensive linemen and has them cancel the B gaps. Normally, most coaches do it with 4 eyes. We happen to do it with 3 techniques, and then it takes a nose to cancel an A gap. We do that sometimes 2 gapping, and we'll have a leg technique and play behind the center's block if it's a reach. Other times we'll stun them, and then an inside linebacker is responsible for the last A gap. And we do that a couple different ways, like I said, 3-0-3, and then we're also going to have movements where we end up taking away that B gap to B gap run with 3 defensive linemen and 1 inside linebacker. As always, I want to thank my head coach, Joe Stevens, for giving me the opportunity to be defensive coordinator here at Coloma for the past 5 years. And I especially want to thank all the players I've coached, especially over the past 5 years, because the amount of film that is available of us doing good things as a defense is thanks to their, again, effort, energy, and enthusiasm. So without any further ado, let's get to how we go about playing the tight front here at Coloma. There are a few things that I want to cover before we get into film of how we go about using the concepts of the tight front with our base 3-4 personnel. I think it all begins with the idea that the concept of the tight front and the way we play it fits our defensive philosophy of giving all 11 of our defenders simple yet sound keys so they can play fast, attack downhill, pursue, and be part of swarming tackles that have an uncommon level of effort, energy, and enthusiasm. I think as much as defense is about having a sound scheme and coaching up the fundamentals of each position, just having more effort, energy, and enthusiasm than the offense can disrupt the execution of the offense and lead to success of the defense. With that said, you have to have clear rules for how you set up your fronts. I think back in episode 12, which is linked below, I covered this, but I want to make sure I cover it again. Our front gets set first by our outside linebacker declaring themselves the force with either a quick stud or bob call. Opposite that call, the defensive back or an inside linebackers can provide force. It depends on the receiver structure over there. Corners are going to play force. Anytime we get 0 detached receivers, they'll check the coverage to our hard, which is cover 2. If we get a hard call by both corners, that cancels any stud or bob call. We'll have corner force on both sides of the formation. If we get only 1 detached receiver, primarily against 2 back sets, the safety is going to play force. He can either be deep at 10-by-1 or down at 5-by-5. And then lastly, our inside linebackers are going to play force if we get 2 detached receivers. Sometimes, if needed, they're responsible for helping reroute number 2 in the coverage. They'll make a quick tank call to close the A gap. Nose 33, which is our variation of the tight front, is going to cancel C gap to C gap, really. It begins with the secondary automatically checking us into our man coverage. We'll also have checks to either our hard, which is cover 2, or stress, which is cover 4, by game plan. Our force is going to be set to the back, the numbers, and then the field in that order with that quick stud or bob call. Our force away from it is either going to be the linebacker or defensive back, most likely the inside linebacker because we're in some sort of man coverage. Strong side alignments, we'll have a 6 technique, a 3 technique, and a 40 technique at inside linebacker. To the weak side, we got that same 6 and 3, but now the inside linebacker is going to tighten up to a 30 technique. In the past, we've primarily 2-gapped our 0 tech nose. However, we do have the ability to stunt him into one of the A-gaps, typically the strong side A-gap, with a quick rhino or lion call that indicates he's the only defensive lineman that's moving. So if we haven't game planned a specific check to a 2x1 pro set, we're going to be lined up in nose 33 against it with the mindset of we want the ball to run east-west, because it's an incredible conflict to ask a 6 technique in this picture, our stud linebacker, to be playing force. It's not something realistic. We are calling this front with the mindset and with the confidence that the speed of our inside linebackers and our safeties is going to be able to match or be better than the speed of those 2 running backs. We're calling and staying this front because we're most concerned with the offense's top plays being some sort of C-gap to C-gap run. And then lastly, we are confident in the discipline of our safety to read the block of that tight end. If he's down blocking, our stud linebacker should be really physical, squeezing him down, eliminating the possibility of him actually being a pass threat on a down block and not slipping on some sort of drag, which in the end could be picked up by our will linebacker, but that would be a bit of a concern because we're in man. Or we're getting a reach block, which again, our stud linebacker, it's going to be hard to maintain the outside, but he should be able to stretch that reach block and let the free safety know that it's time to get downhill, pull my trigger, and become part of the run fit. And then lastly, with that 6 technique being aligned there at outside backer, we should be keeping our inside linebackers very clean to run and go quickly support on the perimeter. 2x2 pro set, we're approaching again with the same mindset of we want the ball to run east to west if we're aligning like this and we're getting a tight end, a flanker tight end pro on one side, because that Bob linebacker, it's next to impossible to truly be a force defender and play a 6 technique. But we're okay with the idea that because we're confident of the speed that we have on the field at those 2 inside linebackers and the ability of that deep safety to read. On the other side, again, a bit of a conflict because we're going to be asking our MAC linebacker technically to be the force defender, so he might be wanting to make a tank call. He doesn't have a pass responsibility over here. But we feel we're okay because if they go a full reach scheme, at some point that ball's going to have to cut back, and the only thing that could really make us have to run with a lot of space is a down scheme that our 6 technique ends up spilling. But even that, if the guard comes and pulls over here, that running back comes across, the will linebacker's got both his guard and his back, he's keying for pass run going away, we're going to be able to match numbers over there. So it comes down to, do we have enough speed on the field to stay in this front? What are the actual plays that a team is going to use if they're using that tight end and we're staying in nose 33? If we're not worried about being beat outside, we're going to call this. So these first 3 clips are going to show how, while the concept of 303, the way we play a tight front, is really simple, we had to make it a little bit more sound. Right now, our outside linebackers are in 5 techniques. This game taught us that we want to play them in 6 techniques. This is week 2 of 2018. We're playing Berrien Springs, a really quality opponent, big, strong offensive lineman up front. And the week before, they had struggled to move the ball against a 303 front. They had an adjustment that we hadn't game planned for of jet sweeping. And by putting the outside linebackers in a 6 technique, especially to the side of that running back, that makes the reach block of this offensive tackle completely impossible. That outside linebacker is going to be able to make sure the ball cuts up to an unblocked inside linebacker and also make sure that any lead block by that running back pretty much has to pick him up. This particular clip of tackle trap shows how using a 303 alignment makes interior runs really, really challenging. Our nose does a great job of essentially playing a leg technique against that reach block by the center. He's in the backside A-gap. Our will linebacker ends up reading both the back working away and that backside A-gap closing, so he starts to fit to the opposite A-gap. Our 3 technique on the bottom of the screen here does a great job of controlling his B-gap. He's completely negated the reach block of the guard. And our 5 technique outside linebacker, again, we now play this as a 6 technique. It'd be nice if his head's up a little bit more for safety reasons, but he's taken on the block of the tackle and essentially spills the ball to himself. And we've got that thing completely mouse-trapped. Unfortunately, our 3 technique got rolled up on there and had a season-ending ankle injury. End zone clip, just it shows how effective we are in getting this ball spilled and keeping it out of the A-B gaps. You see the running back, he puts his foot in the ground, stutter steps, and now all his momentum stopped, and we're able to run him down. Next up is counter against our rival Watervliet. One of our defensive backs towards the end of the half, the DBs came over and they said, Coach, we can man these guys up. Just let the outside linebackers play on the line of scrimmage. And we had not game planned this specifically for these guys and for this opponent. But we had used this front previously, so going into, I believe, the 4th or 5th series of the first half, we said, outside linebackers go up, walk up, play as shadow 6 techniques, and key the block of that offensive tackle. You see our 6 technique does a great job. That's definitely a down block. We could have our will linebacker in this picture work more just straight downhill. He's stepping inside, and that's one other thing we've improved about this front. By widening this guy and saying, hey, you're on the side of the running back, so this is the force side. If we have that inside linebacker widen, he probably fits this and makes a tackle for a 2-yard loss instead of chasing it and wait until the safety shows up. And ultimately we gave up a 4-yard gain. But definitely stopped the inside run from ripping off what had been prior to that 7-8 yard runs. One more learning clip, I guess you could say. We're going to get sweep to the bottom of the screen, and our outside linebacker ends up eating up 3 blocks. They try to crack block him, which, again, this front, by putting him up there, that crack block has to happen sooner. It lets our safety, who's in man coverage on that wide receiver, realize, hey, that's a block. I can go fit this. Our 3 tech does a great job of not even letting the ball carrier get out past B gap. He has to cut up in A gap, and we'd have even better play if we sorted out how to fit on the backside, which I think in most cases I would be moving the nose, even when he's a big 315-pound kid like James is here, because our backside linebacker, if he was more downhill, or our nose held one of the A-gaps longer, that inside linebacker would know where to fit, and again, instead of a 1-yard gain, we probably come up with a 2 to 3 yard loss. So some things we learned early on running a 3-0-3 front. Another clip, we're going to have what we call power ISO to the bottom of the screen here. So outside linebacker kind of has to be the force, and right now our nose is working a 2-gap technique, so our backside linebacker needs to fit the A-gap opposite. Our 3 technique ended up stunting inside, so right now our backside linebacker is just too dead, a little bit too long, and that's why we end up giving a 2-yard gain instead of ending up with some sort of loss. But definitely making their inside run game and even their outside run game, speeding up the amount of time they have to execute fully against us. Another clip, real great play by our 3 tech on the bottom of the screen. Again, we're in our man coverage. Our DBs are rotated over here. And the running back is offset this way, so our stud is playing force to the top of the screen. We end up having trap away. That's the center. Our 3 technique crosses his face like he's a trap and guard. He's trying to hit pocket his guard. Our 3 technique to the other side is trying to spill. Does a decent job. Ends up coming back outside. It'd be nice if he would have just stayed and kept trying to work through the inside half of that guard a little bit more. So instead of a 0-yard gain, we come up with a loss. But making their trap game really, really challenging because they just don't have enough bodies inside. Got to be sound against sweep. Don't do a great job. Our outside linebacker goes into C-gap. But if we watch the clip one more time, because we got so many guys up at the line of scrimmage, all 5 of the offensive linemen are working reach blocks, and the wide receivers, if you look at number 2 here, they don't know who to crack anymore because they don't have second level guys, and we are able to get a big 3-yard loss even on something that is the designed outside run. The way teams are going to test you, especially if you're playing man all the way across, is try to put those outside linebackers in conflict and beat them on some sort of swing route, which is coming here. So we should be in what would be stud now. That outside linebacker is on the running back. He gets both a reach block on essentially screen and boom, big hit to take away that answer that a lot of spread teams go to against man coverage. Trap play to the top of the screen coming here. And again, we're just going to end up overwhelming them with numbers. The center's back block, our 3-tech gets across, and now we make that stick for a 1-yard loss on trap. This is good. 2 things off of this clip that you should be getting. Number 1, we start sending our nose to the strong side. They've got 2 wide receivers here plus the running back. They got 3. The strength is to the left, and that makes this deep safety the force defender. He starts to come downhill because there's flow at his side. His running back is lead blocking, and he ends up fitting for what ends up being a 3-yard gain. This is this past year, end up just overwhelming them at the point of attack. I believe we also ended up scheming that we were going to have the defensive line slant towards the offset back here. They try running an ISO, and our 3 technique just holds down and pushes the guard back, collapses the A-gap insert to the point that he's able to make the tackle all on his own. End zone clip. See the A-gap completely disappear. Nose was stepping to it too, and there's no room to get an interior run. Coverage-wise, we still have our inside linebackers end up. All right, there's tighter splits. We're probably going to get a mesh concept. They end up matching, not perfectly. It'd be nice if crosser going, crosser coming, but they understand who they got to match up, and because of that, and because we get one-on-one blocks, our outside linebacker from the boundary side here is able to run them down and get the sack because we get great coverage over the top. Here is us with a 6 technique on a tight end. So we were not necessarily teaching this kid that it was force. We're going to start to do that, but we're not going to ask them to worry about hitting the tight end with the outside shoulder. We're down around the goal line. We're trying to keep him out. Big strike by both him and our nose. Resetting the line of scrimmage. If we had a little bit better fit out of our inside linebackers, this probably is about a 3-yard loss. You'll see that on the end zone clip here. So our MAC linebacker, if he's downhill, if he's scraping tight to that double team, our 3-tech does a decent job. He definitely gets washed, but his pad level's low. If our MAC linebacker screams off the down block of that tackle, he's going to collision the guard up in the hole and drive him back, and now instead of falling forward, we're able to get a couple yard loss, which is huge when you get down around the goal line because you're forcing teams to do different things. Again, I'm pretty sure we're slanting to that H-back. This is 3x1 or 2x1 with a sniffer, depending on how you like to call things. I treat this guy like a possible vertical threat. We've got our safety and man-to-man on him, and we're slanting. So we end up inside linebackers super clean, downhill. Our 3-tech has spilled the guard. The guard went too wide, and we now got 3 on-block guys fitting on the running back for a 1-yard loss. See the end zone clip real quick here. Ends up spilling the guard. Both inside linebackers are clean. Outside linebacker works back to be outside the base block by the offensive tackle. So now we're going to get working reach blocks here. And our nose does a great job of stalemating that center and being a big athletic guy working across the center's block into the A gap. I believe we have him 2 gap in here. A little bit high pad level, but he's a big strong kid, so he can get his hands going and get rid of the center's block to go fit that. And right now, even with that lead blocker coming here, that's just not a good place for the offense with how we're fitting it. That gap gets too small too fast because we got the 0 and the 3 right beside each other. Another sweep, this time to the bottom of the screen. We get a good crack replace. We're an off man down here with our corner. This is a case of our outside linebacker. I believe he's who is going to get cracked here in a second. So he's getting reached. It'd be nice if he fought here a little bit more. And this is the 3rd and 6. Our linebacker's a little bit too worried about number 3 and making sure he gets him on some sort of crossing route. If that linebacker's pulling his trigger here and we're working harder to get outside of the reach block by the offensive tackle, which we should be doing, but this is the first time this kid's been asked to do this as a 6 technique against the tackle. So our corner ends up getting crack block because the single receiver is cracking our will linebacker. Corner comes up and is able to make a stick for just a 5-yard gain and get us to 4th and 1. Big thing that you got to be able to do, it's 4th and 6. We end up saying, hey, all 3 of you guys, you're going, all 5, excuse me. We're going to put an inside linebacker on the running back and the other one's just going to drop, and we got to be able to play man. We're up pressed here. We know their best receiver is on the top side of the screen, the widest guy here. And we lock him up, break on the ball. Maybe we pass interfered, maybe we didn't. They can't call it every snap, I guess, and play physical, make breaks on the ball, and force them to execute. So now we got power to the bottom of the screen. Our 3 technique starts to squeeze his guard, thinking it's trap for a second, starts to get double teamed, and now right now, you can see they got 4 of their hats working back blocks. They got their guard coming around, and they're just outnumbered at the point of attack. It'd be nice if our outside linebacker, I'd still want him to attack this lead block and spill it, just because we're going to get the scrapes from our linebackers. And if we're calling 3-0-3, we have the mindset. We want this thing to run sideline to sideline, an east-west run, instead of the vertical run that they're trying to make happen with the power there. Again, our Bob linebacker could have played this a little bit more physically to really set that and turn it into a loss instead of a 0-yard gain. Good job against sweep. Right now, our outside linebacker, he knows he's responsible for the swing of number 3 here. He ends up getting over top of the crack block and really ends up outside faster than planned. Sets the edge, forces the running back to cut back, and our big nose James has done a great job of pursuing as Jackson forces it back and gets out there, and we get multiple guys to the point of attack. Again, they can't get up to the second level because you're speeding up the execution by putting guys up on the line of scrimmage and filling C-gap to C-gap. End up getting a hip pocket, I believe, out of our defensive lineman from the backside. Nice job there. Be nice if our linebacker would actually see both his back and guard working away. Our 3 technique on the bottom basically spills the center's back block, ends up scraping across, and helps make the tackle from the backside. Again, the nose is occupying the back block, the down block, I guess, excuse me, the down block of his guard, the down block of that center. If our will linebacker is also making the appropriate read, knowing that the outside linebacker can maybe play a quarterback keep or something like that, and he sees both, again, his guard and his back away, they're completely outnumbered at the point of attack, and the hip pocket by our 3 technique by Jonan there, not even needed. And you see the downhill fill starting from our safety, just nice play all around. Another blitz peel example, we have our outside linebacker. We've in the past been telling him key that offensive tackle to the backfield, but you got to be responsible for that swing. That's like a reach block. He comes up, almost gets himself interception on the swing, which again, it's a cover 0 answer. Here we go. We got trap by the quarterback to the bottom of the screen. We get a spill by our 3 technique, downhill fill out of our play side linebacker, our Will, and could have better pad level and whatnot, but negative 1 yard loss. Be great if we got the MAC linebacker over the top. He falls for the power fake by the running back. If he has his eyes to also see that guard going, we really got him outnumbered at the point of attack. Nose 54 pinch is another way that we can play the concept of the tight front, where we're canceling the B gaps with our end tackle, crossing the faces of the offensive tackle, aiming for the belt buckles of the guard with the outside hand on the near hip, the inside hand under the belly button, and taking away the interior run, but keeping the edge with stud force, 9 technique that's going to be challenging for a tight end to reach, and our down safety on the boundary side here playing force, and then man coverage over the top. What it allows us to do is, if we're playing a team that we feel is maybe equal in speed, that we don't want to get outside, it lets us keep the edge. Here we are against Kalamazoo United. We're treating this like a trip set, so we skied our coverage. Deeper safety is keying the number 3. The walk down safety is keying number 2 here. Number 3 pulls across. Great job by James at nose. He resets the line of scrimmage, makes sure the pulling sniffers can't even really get over there. We spill the ball out, get a bunch of hats to the ball. Anytime you get more of your jerseys around the ball than the opponent, you're in a really good spot. End zone shot. Now, our stud linebacker doesn't have to be force, because the running back's not set to his side, and then there's more guys opposite him. And then on top of all that, the safety on his side is going to be able to come back if it turns into a spill situation with the running back coming across. So you're going to see them double team our pinching 4. Our stud ends up squeezing that down block, spills the first sniffer coming. Our MAC linebacker is fitting downhill, filling, ends up getting a great profile tackle. Our safety's over the top because his sniffer came back. You see our other safety underneath the goalpost here. He's playing cutback. Our nose is running the hoop, per se, around the center and getting in pursuit. And we now got the ball completely leveraged. Nick, our linebacker, showed up first, and there comes our big nose. And Jackson did a great job spilling it, running his circle, and we've taken the air out of the inside run. Still got to be sound, running the same call to a potential sweep here on the next clip, which is what we get. We're skied down. Because we're skied down, they're not going to be able to get the edge. We do a great job, and this is why we're calling this. Our outside linebacker is able to fight that reach block and make sure the ball cuts up, bounces out to D-gap, where we got an unblocked safety and clean run through from our inside linebacker, our MAC linebacker, Nick. So again, we're skying. We're saying, hey, they got to bring a lot of guys back, and we're going to see them if they do come back. I believe we actually have blitzes called. Blaze and an attack is what we call it. Both our inside linebackers are coming. They're downhill. Play side, our MAC, Nick, he gets pretty much a clean run through. Makes another blocker miss. Do a great job stretching their reach blocks. Our safety, Mike, is forcing the ball to cut back, and we're in good position to make a tackle for a 3-yard loss. And again, by calling that pinch and letting the outside linebacker, along with the safety, really force that ball to go back is the advantage of running this call. Here we are against Berrien Springs again this year, and we get a decent spill, and we fit downhill at safety and give up a 2-yard gain. So right now, this is twins. The way we'd want to set this up, we're playing corner over here. I don't know if we're going to do that in the future, but we'd be in a stud call with the way that I want to do it now, and we'd be in hard coverage over here while we could play either man or read over on this side. Bottom line, we're pinching here. Our 4 is coming down inside. He's spilled the ball. It'd be nice. His pad level's too high, so he gets pushed back instead of making a dent in the line of scrimmage. We get our linebacker over the top, and our safety's fitting downhill. Really, that in the future might be the job more so of the outside linebackers. But we make a great stick, and we make sure the ball doesn't hit the A-gaps. Against United again, we're pinching, and we take away the A-gap run, collapse it down, and make a great stand. We struggled offensively this past year against these guys, and we had the short field. Did a decent job, really, on defense, considering we kept on giving them short fields. Travis is the 5 here. He's going to be pinching to, they're actually unbalanced. 1, 2, 3, 4, yep. He's the 5. We've bumped the front over, so we're treating that guard like the center. There's our nose lined up. And our backside 4 is actually a 2. We've got a 5, which is really more of a 9 or whatever you want to get into. But we're squeezing both these guys. I think this is a squeeze call, not a pinch call. Yep, we're inside. Okay against the double team. And we're at least making sure the ball goes wider, which gives our nose a chance to win his one-on-one. He defeats his block, and their dive play goes forward 0 yards while they're trying to hold us honest with the inside run. Here we are against Berrien Springs again, and we do a great job at 9 Tech. Jackson here is playing Bob, linebacker, keeps his outside shoulder, could work a little harder, just get upfield, get off the block, so he can make a tackle on a really good ball carrier who stays on his feet. Luckily, we're rallying to the ball, and we eventually get him back down. End zone shot. And now, are we giving up that gap to some extent? Yeah, but we're making sure this was designed to hit A gap. It has to go out wider, and because we're squeezing that tight end down and we're being physical, the backfields, he has to bounce it all the way to the perimeter, and we get both the on-block safety and our outside linebacker and a bunch of jerseys, good color jerseys, around the ball. Here we are against Lawton. Had a really good defensive slugfest with them. We're squeezing, we're taking away the inside trap. You can see a spill by Travis. Ends up chopping it down, actually mostly by himself, and just not a lot of room to run on a 3rd and 4. They're only going to get a 1-yard gain, and we're sitting at 4th and 3. We're in a good spot. And here is one last clip of us really playing close to what most people consider a tight front, except for in 5s, and we're going to be moving to it. We got both outside linebackers off the line of scrimmage. We've got outside linebacker to the running back is a little bit wider, and we end up with counter to the bottom of the screen here. Our 5's aiming for the guard, the other 5's aiming for his guard, and if our stud linebacker strikes that tackle a little harder, a little bit more better pad level, and our inside linebacker can be more downhill, we probably end up with a 0-yard gain instead of 3-yard gain for the first down that they end up picking up.
As always, guys, if you have questions or comments, please leave them down below. I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. Check me out and follow me on Twitter at Coach Klee. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like what you see. And if you have anything that maybe requires a longer response, hit me up at coachbrienklee@gmail.com. Thanks as always for tuning in. See you again.